endurance athlete and motivational speaker. The topic of today's video is practice your victory pose. So if you've got a big event, a big race coming up, and you've been training for months and months and months, and training hard, you need to practice your victory pose. When you go across that finish line, man, the celebration begins. Now, my victory pose comes from back in the 1980s when Joe Montana ruled the world with the 49ers. He's my hero. And every time he throw a touchdown pass, the victory pose went up. So when I'm finishing something, I gotta throw in the victory pose. And I know, like right now, I got a volcano climb coming up, and in Mexico, and it's like almost 20,000 feet high. I'll be at the tip of this volcano, standing on the very top, like victory pose. Real careful not to fall off, though. Fact is, and so you got to think of what your pose is. So the celebration begins as soon as you hit the finish line, or whatever your finish line is. You got to come up with it. You could borrow my victory Joe, which I borrowed from Joe, but you could borrow the victory pose, or you got to, you could come up with something else. But I will tell you, I do have one other pose, and this is called my if I freeze to death pose. So back in my heyday was during the disco days, like in my early 20s, and John Travolta was the king back then with the John Travolta disco pose. So I tell everybody, because I've got that volcano climb coming up, and then I'm going to do the Arrowhead 135 in northern Minnesota. That thing is cold. It was minus 50 last time I was out there. And then a couple months later, I'm climbing Mount Denali in Alaska, the world's coldest mountain. So I have a pose. If I freeze to death, I tell everybody, I'm going out in the disco pose like John Travolta. And my buddy, he told me, we were talking, he's back in Minnesota, he runs around on one of the snowmobiles a lot of times on the safety thing, and he assured me, he says, Bill, man, if I ever find you out on the trail, and you're frozen to death, and you're in the fetal position or something, or if you're frozen to somebody else in the spoon position, he says, you don't worry, I got your back, buddy. He says, I always carry a chainsaw on my snowmobile. I'm gonna cut you up and say the wolves ate you. I love him for that. I love him. So you're gonna see the victory pose, the disco pose, or you're gonna hear that the wolves ate me. Anyway, practice your pose. I would recommend practicing your victory pose, whatever it is, whatever your victory pose is. But when you get across that finish line, the celebration begins. If you want to contact me, you can email me at epicbillbradley@gmail.com.